All right. Thank you for joining us here on the Now Granted stream. Won't be one of our podcast episodes, but we're just playing around, seeing how our setup works and making sure everything works well. We got a couple things to talk about. I'm here with Michael and Perrin, and we're about ready to get started. You ready to get started, Mikey?
Yeah, I'm ready to be started. So you don't have to call me by my full name. I go by Mikey. That's just affectionate enough for me. So
That's fair. What do we got to talk about here today, Mikey?
today, must say that I have to steal from my internet correspondent. His name is Matt. So I don't know if he's going to be on or actually watching this at any certain point in time, but he sent me some recent news about Saudi Arabia temporarily breaking diplomatic ties with Canada.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. You don't think about Canada getting into too much trouble. You know, they're generally you think about Canadians as being pretty milquetoast.
Well, especially to the Saudis. Now, which is interesting is Saudi Arabia suspended. So I don't know if you have the article up from Bloomberg saying Saudi slaps at Canada shows Crown Prince's assertiveness. So this is the new Crown Prince. I think was he crowned last year?
It was either that or the year before.
Or the year before.
Yeah,
but it's been recent. New. And so it says right here, it says Saudi Arabia has suspended diplomatic ties and new trade dealings with Canada on Sunday in response to Canada's call for the release of women's rights activists.
Okay.
In November, the kingdom. Oh, so it says in November. Is this? Oh, well, this was 2 days ago. It says in November, the kingdom recalled its ambassador to Germany and cut back commercial ties with some German companies after then foreign ministers suggested the kingdom had orchestrated the surprise resignation of Lebanese prime minister, a charge that they deny. So, okay, so that's was talking about Germany last year. But just 2 days ago, I believe it was a Canadian prime minister suggesting that Saudi Arabia, not the prime minister, a minister.
Oh, okay, just a minister. Okay, sorry.
Just a minister. So suggested that they were too harsh on women's rights activists in the country.
Oh, okay.
And just because of that, they recalled their they asked for Canada to recall their their embassy, their ambassador, and then they've also, I believe, suggested that 16,000 students that are from Saudi Arabia in Canada should be recalled home.
Wow. That's a lot of stuff going on with Canada and Saudi Arabia. You know, I think some of this might be informed with the stuff that's going on with oil. A lot of people don't realize that Canada is actually one of the largest oil producers in the world.
This could be possible.
So they might have some beef based on that, and then all this diplomatic stuff is kind of the way that they can actually publicly display some of that aggression towards each other.
I wouldn't be surprised if oil had something to do with it. So yeah. So right now this is the second major international member, or this is the So 2 members of the group of 7 nations as Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman implements an increasingly assertive foreign policy. So it seems like not just that it might have to do with oil, but it could be that, or what at least this article is saying, and what it actually looks on paper is that Saudi Arabia is trying to assert itself further than, let's say, the region of the Middle East when it comes to their foreign policy, and they want to be a bigger player in, on the world stage.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It seems like the new king, which I just looked up, he's been in since 2015. So it looks like the new king actually wants to start making some progressive changes to Saudi Arabia. I know that they
new king or crown prince.
I looked up the king, Salman of Saudi Arabia.
Mohammed bin Salman.
Yeah,
that's a crown prince.
It says
so he's the heir. So he's the new heir.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's a little.
So the king is still old.
Yeah.
So the king's been in for a long time, but he changed heirs from another man to this guy. So to this current guy.
Okay.
And so it seems like on the surface, how may I say, is that, damn it, I'm doing it again. But it seems like they want to not be influenced by foreign pressure to change domestic policy.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And to be completely honest, with them expanding the rights of women to include go out and drive themselves, I think they should kind of go at their own pace.
Okay.
They can't expect their culture to change that drastically, overnight. Not that it's great the conditions that women have over there, but you know what I mean. It's a balancing act. You want to see people with more freedom and with more ability to make decisions for their lives, but at the same time, if you radically alter the status quo in a country, you're going to have a lot of problems. So as much as Canada is definitely right for them to call for more freedoms and more individuality in Saudi Arabia, especially for their women, it's not necessarily the right move to do it all at once.
Yeah, and it seems like at least as a statement from what do you call it? Canada has exported blah blah blah, and then the Canadian government. I don't know who they're quoting. Oh, Neil Patrick, a Saudi expert and editor of Saudi Arabian foreign policy, conflict, and cooperation, is quoted saying the Canadian government was only voicing a frustration that other Saudi allies privately feel with the kingdom's reform process, but it is unwise to do it in comparatively strident language.
Yeah,
so
that sounds like it's kind of backing up what I was saying, that the Canada's talking a big game, but actually being able to implement those changes in Saudi Arabia as it exists today is.
Yeah, it seems like it just personally it just seems like how do you call it? What do you call it? It just let me see. I'm just going through the article even further. So it just seems like with this new crown prince, their foreign policy used to be subtle, and which I mean they had every major benefit to keep it subtle because most of the I'd say the partners that they deal with is on an economic basis.
Yeah.
But since now they're relying on how do you call it? They're relying on outside governments for military aid is probably the most important, especially with their proxy war with Iran and with their involvement in Yemen, with the overthrowing and destabilizing that government and fighting off. I forgot who the little insurgent group is in North Yemen, South Saudi Arabia, in the mountains there. It seems like a more introduction, or at least more reliance. Or I mean, not more reliance, but this. I don't know. It seems like they want to change the relationship that they have with the other great powers that they export with.
Yeah.
And it seems like subtle diplomacy, also being probably the largest oil producer, or at least seller in the world.
They are currently the largest. The interesting thing actually is that Texas is ramping up their production. They've recently developed a bunch of new shale oil technologies, being able to access the shale oil, and they predict that they will be the largest oil producer in the world by 2020 or 2025, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Right now, just Texas itself is rocketed up to, I believe, third, behind Russia.
Really, just the state?
Yeah. So if my memory is correct, then I believe that the United States plus the rest of Texas is still third, Russia's second, and then obviously Saudi Arabia is number one. But just Texas by itself would be third as well, just because there's so much of a disparity between oil-producing countries.
All right. I mean, well, Texas really needs it because now this is a different, I would say, a different issue. At least when it comes to Texas, is because with the kind of the oil wars that have been like the oil, let's just call them the conflict of oil.
Yeah.
I mean, of the production, the consumption of oil. taxes on oil have gone down because they haven't been producing as much.
Yeah.
And what has happened is they heavily put their upper education, so college, is actually funded by the oil taxes. And since their oil production has gone down because they can't sell it at the price that say Saudi Arabia or other producers that can do it cheaper, or that would just say OPEC can do it cheaper, taxes have kind of have declined. Thus, and their higher education, the higher education system has suffered.
So you're basically saying that in Texas, the educational system is somewhat tied to oil money.
Oil.
Okay.
Yes. Well, their upper education.
Yeah.
I would imagine. I wouldn't be surprised if their K through 12 would be, let's say, tied to that as well. But
I would imagine that's probably property taxes. And
I would be so. Most states do property taxes.
The thing is, it might still be property taxes even for those upper education things. And the boom in oil means a boom in property values in certain areas.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Do you know how it's tied to oil? Like, is it just on the production?
It's taxing on production and selling.
Okay.
So because they're producing less and they're selling less,
sure.
The tax revenue has gone down, and because tax revenue has gone down, money going towards upper education or to college, in a sense, has gone down as well.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be surprised that they're looking for new avenues to produce more oil.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're constantly looking at it. Well, the other thing about Canada is they've got a bunch of oil too. They pretty much supply the United States with our domestic oil. And then on top of that, they've got another, I think, 5 trillion barrels of oil that's sitting in their permafrost.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, when it comes to Texas, how would that affect their environment, if you don't mind me asking, if with this new shale, with the new oil shale?
So my understanding is that actually the new methods and techniques are significantly cleaner than they were originally. The other issue is that a lot of the early, a lot of the people that were complaining early on, it was kind of iffy whether or not it was actually connected to the shale oil drilling. But like I said, the new techniques that I have are significantly safer and significantly cheaper. So
okay. So I mean, if it's a way that it doesn't impact the environment, because that's something that is in high contention, especially with fracking a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So
where there has been, it's reportedly severe consequences, especially to groundwater.
Oh, for sure. And any time that you're going to be pulling something out of the ground, there's going to be consequences. There's no way that we can exist in the modern society without some sort of consequences to the environment. The main point that I always try to make is that we should try to minimize the damage that we do, and make sure that it's spread out in such a way that it's not completely destroying a ton of different land. Kind of isolate it to places that are already, either a desert without anything living in it, or something that's not quite as important as it's not a watershed area or something like that.
Yeah. Well, actually, if you want to go back, if I can go back, is because I put up another article from the Gulf News, and I don't know who I haven't really heard of the Gulf News before, so I don't know who owns it or runs it.
Okay.
But it looks like what happened was to Ottawa's call. So the state of Ottawa, it seems like their parliament has called for the immediate release of activist Samar Badawi. Is that how you pronounce it? I apologize. I probably destroyed this name. So yeah, Samar Badawi. A dramatic escalation of highlights the kingdom's increasingly assertive foreign policy, and she, Samar Mohammed Badwahi. Man, I'm terrible with these names. I'm terrible with anything really is in English.
Well,
I suck at English
I just
too.
noticed that Samar Badawi, I think Badawi.
Yeah.
It looks like it says he's an activist. What?
She's an activist.
I apologize.
Yeah, she is a human rights and a women's rights activist. Born in Saudi Arabia, has dual citizenship here in Saudi Arabia and the United States,
okay.
And she's been in prison since 2016 with her kid.
And did it say why she's in prison?
What happened was so so she's about women's suffrage, and she's against the Sharia court. She participated in a women driving camp in the 2011-2012 women driving campaign.
Looks like she got what she wanted there.
Yeah, and then there's a 2014 travel ban. Attended a discussion of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva on behalf of the Organization of Americans for Democracy and Human Rights in Bahrain, and the Bahrain Institute of Rights and Democracy. This is while the Human Rights Court's in Geneva, but while we met up with High Commissioner of Human Rights. Okay, so she met with U.S. senators. It seems like her husband's detained, and I think her brother's detained as well.
Man, what a nightmare for that family.
I know. She direct threat from the Secretary of Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, and she must stop her human rights activities. Otherwise, action would be taken against her. She subsequently returned to Saudi Arabia without incident, other than local authorities taking her passport. 2nd of December 2014. She went to the Saudi Arabia International Airport to Brussels, Belgium, to participate in the EU's NGOs Forum on Human Rights. Passport Office staff said the Ministry of Interior issued a travel ban that would not allow her to travel abroad. So it looks like she went to Saudi Arabia without incident, and then they wouldn't have let her leave the country.
Okay.
And then in 2016, so this is about, well, not 2 years, it's about a year and a half, right? So December 2014 all the way through 2015, at the beginning of January 2016, press release 12th January 2016, Amnesty International announced that she has been arrested along with a 2-year-old daughter, Jaoud, and has been taken to a police station in Jeddah, where she was interrogated. 4 hours later, Badwahi was transferred to Deban Central Prison, the same prison where her brother, Saudi descent Raif Badwahi, is held.
Oh, wow. I think you said it earlier, but just to reiterate, where was she born and where's her family from?
I think she's from Saudi Arabia,
okay.
So she's a Saudi Arabian American.
I'm always curious about that kind of stuff, just to know a little bit more of the context, because when you have dual citizenship like that, it's, was she born here and she's got a Saudi citizenship from her parents somehow? I don't know how that works.
I don't know. It doesn't say much. I'm just reading the Wikipedia article on her.
Okay.
Born 1981, Saudi Arabian American human rights activist. She and her father, who physically abused her for 15 years, filed court cases against one another. Badwahi's father accused her of disobedience under the Saudi Arabian male guardianship system. She changed her father charged father with I don't know what this word is, ati or ati, was it for refusing her to allow her to marry. So it seems like that it's Sharia legal technicalities.
Yeah, it sounds like her father's trying to control her the way that fathers in Saudi Arabia have for 1,000 years.
Yeah, Badwahi was imprisoned under a warrant relating to her disobedience, charged April 4th, 2010, released 25th October 2010 after a local international support campaign, and her guardianship was transferred to an uncle. Saudi Arabian NGO Human Rights First Society described Badwahi's imprisonment as outrageous and as an outrageous illegal detention. Badwahi's filed grievances board lawsuit against the Ministry of Municipal Rural Affairs, the rejection of her registration in the 2011 municipal elections. She participated in the driving campaign, which I said earlier, by driving regularly, and since 2011, helping women drivers with police and court procedures. November of 2011, she and Manal Al-Sharif filed charges in the grievance board against the Saudi Arabian General Directorate of Traffic for rejecting their applications for driver's licenses. On the 8th of March, Badwahi was given an award by the United States Department of State for contributions to women's rights.
Nice.
In 2018, she was arrested by the Saudi Arabian authorities again. Okay, so it looks like she was arrested in 2016, let go, and then she was arrested again this year.
It's incredible to me that that the United Nations Human Rights Council includes Saudi Arabia. Despite the fact that they're one of the worst human rights abusers, especially of women. I don't know anything about Saudi Arabia in particular, but I know that the African slave trade is pretty big in a lot of these Muslim countries too.
Well, it's the slave trade is big in the peninsula.
Okay.
So Omar, is it Omar or yeah, Omar's they're Qatar. Sorry, not Omar.
Oh,
Qatar.
you mean Oman?
The Oman, but Qatar. The I got them too confused.
Yeah.
Qatar. I think they're hosting the 2022 World Cup,
Okay.
the 2020 World Cup, or the 2022 World Cup.
It'd have to be the 2022 because it's every 4 years.
That's right. That's right. So the 2022 World Cup, and the biggest thing is they're one of the biggest instigator, or at least perpetuators of slavery.
Yeah.
And so what they do and how they get away with it is in Qatar, the law is if you're a foreign immigrant working, your employer holds your passport or your visa. And so what they do is they hold your visa and they don't give it back.
Until you've completed however much work that they want you to do, or
well, the thing is,
ever.
there's really no limit.
Yeah.
Yes, unlimited. They hold, so they pay you actually. So, but they pay you cents on the dollar.
Yeah. Yep.
And so it's completely legal. And actually, many of them are not from Africa. They're from like the Philippines,
Okay.
Bangladesh, Southeast Asian countries that go across for work.
Yeah.
And what happens is that they hold their passport. Once they get employed, then they get paid way under, that would say, like any living standard.
Yeah.
Like severely. Like it's pretty much destitute. Where many of these people work, they work well, 12, 14, 16-hour days. And especially now in the summer heat.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that the working conditions are just abysmal too.
Yeah, and actually, and much of they're saying the stadium that is being built, if there is a stadium being built for this new World Cup, will be built by this cheap labor.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and the thing is what I think I would say comes up as a critique, and just a critique to the United States in general, is that we operate in this region of the world, and that we have strong diplomatic relationships with this region of the world, like with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, so the United Arab Emirates.
Everybody does. That's the problem.
Yeah, and so it kind of makes a contradiction in American values, is that we're completely importantly against all the things that is going on, especially with this human rights activist that we just talked about, or I referenced earlier, and and we're still, it's business as normal.
Yeah. And
it seems like with the polling of the 16, or the recall of the 16,000 students, and the how did we call it, the 16,000 students, and then the relieving of the Canadian ambassador, they really kind of just want to solidify this down, and they don't want anybody discussing what's going on in their country.
Yeah.
Now, this is usually very overt, because with other nations that have had human rights violations in the past, it's more subtle. China is the biggest example.
Yep. Well, they're also a lot better about covering up what's going on over there, just with their Great Firewall of China and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, they are, but it does get through. And what happens is, on just in general, is that our ambassador would go to the embassy in China, or their ambassador will be here. Usually we go to China, and more or less they say, hey, we have these human rights complaints. We're not going to do business with you if you continue these practices. And they just say, well, we're your largest trading partner, and we hold like $2 or $3 trillion of your debt.
Yeah.
And guess what? That's business.
Well, one of the things that Donald Trump's known for is actually using debt against those institutions. So you get a big loan from somebody, $1 billion, $2 billion. Well, at that point, they're so invested in you paying them back that they have to help you get it done. That's as far as building projects go. But then you have countries like the United States, that $2 or $3 trillion is just as much of a problem for China as it is the United States. If we default on those loans, they got some problems with their markets.
Well, that's why they stopped buying.
Yep.
They have. Actually, the funny thing is, I hear this. I don't hear it as much anymore. Right. This was a bigger thing under Bush, and starting into the Obama administration. But by the time Obama was elected in 2009, that's when China stopped buying our debt.
Yep. Well, the
So,
funny thing is that do you know who the biggest debt holder of United States government debt is?
the Fed,
It's
we
it's
ourselves,
not the Fed. It's actually individuals. Individuals,
individuals.
banks, those kinds of institutions are actually the largest debt holders. The next being China, and then actually the funny thing is throughout the 80s and 90s, I think at some point China had started buying, or sorry, Japan had a bunch of our debt before China. It must have been the 80s.
Probably.
The 90s were not good to the Japanese, but
No, no, that was an unregulated stock market system that
yeah.
you were governmentally mandated to put your retirement in.
You know that just couldn't possibly fail. You know.
It couldn't. Oh no, it never does, right? Something that's completely unregulated, but it's not just it's too regulated, and it's government mandated. It's the opposite, or
Yeah,
kind of the
it's
opposite,
not
kind of the
regulated
inverse
enough to a certain extent.
at all.
And
No, at
and
all.
as much as
And then the
I
government.
hate regulations for the most part, but to a certain extent, if you're going to have an all-encompassing program where you're required to be putting money into it, there better be some pretty good regulations on that.
Well, if your government, well, it's like being put. Well, economies tend to go up and down,
Yeah,
and what happened was is that anything that could have been a buffer, which is usually savings, individual savings that buffer people, how may I call it, buffers people's pain, or buffers the pain of an impact such as an economic
yeah,
collapse. But that was all tied into the market.
that's a bit
So
of a
it was
problem.
kind of it's kind of like stimulating the market while simultaneously not doing it the way that usually other countries do it by large financial institutions by lowering percentages or just flooding the market with cheap paper. So I mean, it's just I just find it kind of ridiculous. Um, it's just, but let's just go back to kind of how how China did it, or how China has done it is now, since they don't buy our debt anymore, or to a significant enough degree where we're technically, let's say, quote unquote, owned by the Chinese government.
uh,
Um, Now, more or less, the Fed has taken on a program of buying up our debt.
yeah,
And so that's what the Fed does, and that's what the Fed's been continuing doing.
yep.
Now, maybe this be a topic for a whole, another episode, but that's probably just leave it at a whole nother episode where we have our other co-host,
Yeah,
here to join us. But but nevertheless, that is an example. The China example is a way how the United States has failed to, let's say, directly trying to change, human rights in that country. It seems like that's what the Saudis are doing to the Canadians, is saying, hey, don't talk shit with us, and you know, and then we'll have better economic and uh, diplomatic relations with you.
gotcha. Yeah,
So it's in a way, it's telling the Canadians, hey, I'm not doing business with you. You're doing business with me, in a sense. One, and then number two, um, uh, another thing that's just popped into my mind right now is what words can be said. How long does it take for a country not to be offended?
what? Sorry.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, what how long, how many words does, like, what needs to be said now, what to get a country offended?
Oh, not
It seems like
much.
people are not much, but I mean offended in the sense like, hey, look, this is an offense. Please don't. Usually it's done more subtly,
That's true.
but it seems like the outrage culture now has taken over entire nations.
Yeah, well, the biggest, one of the funniest things currently is how the left sees outrage and what's outrageous to them, and who wins in the outrage games. I feel like that'd be an
Yeah.
interesting Hunger Games parody, the outrage games. Who had the worst injustice done to them? You know.
Well, but it's funny too is that it shows that it's not just how do you call it? It's not just um wait, how do you call it? It's not just the left though. The right is just as
Oh
outrageous.
yeah, I think that there's definitely different waves. I would equate what's going on with the left right now with kind of the religious right of the '90s.
Ooh,
I,
that's good. That's a
the modern left is probably a little bit more extreme. Um, but I feel like the morals and the values that the religious right of the '90s was really trying to push on the United States. I feel like those are just as opposed to the Constitution and to our rights and freedoms as what the
it
left
is.
wants to do. And in the '90s, I was a kid, so I didn't really know any better. But having grown up with having grown up where my community, kind of supported that, and then kind of seeing, what problems that causes and the unintended consequences of legislating morality, it's really changed my mind since I've, kind of gotten out of that milieu.
Well, I mean, it just seems like I grew up in that kind of that culture as well. So so this is kind of it seems like this is personal talk time, but
Yeah. Well, that's what it should be.
it wasn't.
People don't want to
Yeah,
hear us regurgitating what we read.
exactly. And so, actually, not exactly, but I mean, to follow through with that point, but I grew up in that kind of socially conservative. My father was very socially conservative when I was growing up,
Same.
and it just seemed he was a neocon in a sense.
Uh,
I don't know. I
yeah.
really I really don't know how, because he grew up. His parents were like hardcore, not hardcore, but they were FDR Democrats
Well,
in
I
a
think that a
sense.
lot of kids, there's two basic tracks that you go down. You either, you're lockstep in line with your parents, or you're, radically opposed to them and just take the opposite of whatever their stances are. That's
Well, he
generally how
wasn't
kids
opposed to
go.
the parents. Well, actually, no, I wouldn't say he was a parent. Well, they were FDR Democrats, but they were socially
Yeah.
conservative. I
Well,
mean,
I
that's
feel like
something for the
I
area.
feel like most people were socially conservative at that point, and that kind of meant something a little bit different, you know?
Oh, that's true. That could be possible. I mean, but it's also the state of California.
Yeah.
So usually in the in the Central Valley, people tend to be, let's say, fiscally liberal or fiscally left or fiscally center left and socially conservative. It's been like that for a long time,
Yeah.
and it actually still is like that. So it's technically it can vote Democrat all at once, right? It'll vote if it the choice between Trump and Bernie Sanders. Fresno is going to vote for Bernie
Yeah.
Sanders, right? But they're still socially conservative, and so it seems like that kind of just could have mutated or evolved into what would be typical neoconservatism.
Yeah. Well,
Big government in the sense of military spending, low on the social programs, and a conservative enforcement of social values by the
the
state.
interesting thing is how what's going on in the international realm, how that kind of affects different areas. So here in Southern California, because of our proximity to the Pacific Theater, we actually had a lot of World War II, and a lot of Korean and Vietnam war production going on here in Southern California. For a
Yeah.
long time, actually, the Home Depot that my dad used to go shop at when I was a kid, when it was originally constructed, it was a factory for constructing, I believe it was Sherman tanks during World War
Oh, that's
II.
cool.
Yeah.
That's
So I
pretty
had no
cool.
idea about that
Uh,
until it was getting torn down, unfortunately. But
Actually, what is it? Aerospace defense actually was centered,
yeah.
national aerospace defense. Like
Yep.
all of our aerospace
Yep.
defense was centered here in Southern
Yep.
California
All,
for
all
decades.
because of Edwards Air Force Base and the what lake bed is that?
Oh,
The lake bed that it's on.
the salt flats or something
Yeah,
like
I can't
that.
remember the name.
I can look it up
Yeah.
on see if I can look it up on
Yeah.
the map. But
Mojave is it?
uh,
No, it's not the Mojave Desert. It's in the Mojave Desert, but it's not.
yeah, I know where Edwards is.
Yeah,
Let me look it up
but
real quick.
it's interesting how that stuff affects how people feel about government policies. Because of course, if your livelihood is based around the factory where they make tanks and aerospace industry and that sort of thing, you're going to be pushing for more big government spending projects because that's where that's where your bread and butter is.
Yeah. So, but again, I don't know. It seems like that neoconservatism more or less since actually I got to college, kind of has more or less faded out.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's surprising, So I don't know when you got to college. Was it kind of around? Was it around the first or the second time that Obama was elected?
I was it my first semester at community college was like September of 2011.
Okay, yeah, so that's right about the time that Obama's running for office. You know, he's
Yeah, running. I actually remember ditching class to watch the elections on the computer
yeah,
and just being totally disappointed
yeah.
that Mitt Romney
Oh yeah,
lost.
well I've
And
been
then
voting since 2008, so my first two presidential elections were just bitter defeat.
yeah, well, I my first election was 2010.
Yeah.
So Jerry Brown just was
Oh man,
reran
Governor
for governor
Moonbeam.
against Meg Whitman. Oh, how disappointing was that? How disappointing is that? It was
Yeah.
Meg Whitman as governor, and then the senator was Fiorina.
Yep, I remember
Is that her
that.
name?
Yeah, Carly.
Ugh. I was not. I'm gonna say I was not happy voting for both
You
of
know,
them.
you know what?
And it's not because they're women. It's just because Meg Whitman was just unimpressive to me, and Carly Fiorina, I have a bone to pick
Well,
with her.
I've got a bit of a bone with her as well, but the problem for both of them is, well, at least with Carly, I'm not so sure about Meg Whitman's record, but she really just doesn't have one. You know, you look at like Carly Fiorina's record. It's she got to be the president or CEO of what was it, HP? Was she HP?
Yeah, Hewlett
Yeah.
Packard. Yeah, and she drove it to the
Yep.
ground.
Well, and
Act-
that could have just partially been the circumstances that she was in, and I've heard some of her apologists claim that the reason that the reason that it went into the ground was, you know, the economy and everything else under the sun, other than her own.
No,
Yeah, that's
no. It was one of the largest, most. One of the largest and one of the most profitable computer companies. So,
decades.
in the country.
Decades. You know,
Right.
it wasn't. It's
Decades.
not like it just
in the
got
country.
to the prominence. It's been
And so what happened was it was a controversial merger with Compaq Computers.
another huge computer manufacturer.
Well, yeah, but they were going under, so they weren't producing anything well. Everything was super cheap. Like I had a Compaq tower.
I think everybody
was
did at one
useless.
point because how cheap it was.
I think
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean at the last point it was better as a space heater.
Yep. A lot of computers are still better for that anyway.
Oh, but I mean this one. I didn't even have to turn the heater on in my room.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I had a heater in my room. That's that Compaq computer. That thing would have burned the air. Almost gave me blisters out of the exit fans.
Yep.
But nevertheless, what happened, at least from what I know, is that the owners. So she was the CEO, but the two owners did not want to do the merger. And so what happened was she went to the board and she caused a coup in the company
Oh,
where
okay.
the board overruled the owners.
Yeah, that's awful.
And so then what happened was after the coup, after the merger, it just wasn't the same. They took on more problems than they could all their debt and bad and toxic assets.
Yep.
And just it just did not did not work well for Hewlett Packard.
She took a fairly well functioning machine and tried to and thought that you could just slap on a dysfunctional company on top of it and
Exactly, and that's not the first company that she put into the ground.
Yeah.
Too. Before Hewlett Packard, she was the CEO of I forgot what biochemical company it was, but this was an old standing, a century old,
Yeah.
one of the largest biochemical companies in the world, and ended up that how do you call it? That went in the ground when she left. She got a golden parachute. I think she went to another company where she got a golden parachute. Then she went to Hewlett Packard, where she drove that into the ground, and that, in a sense, went into she got a golden parachute for that. And now Hewlett Packard is actually two companies now.
Yep, they split off the printers, right? Printers and towers.
They split off from printers and towers and something else, but it's completely separated now. And
well, my biggest issue with somebody like Carly Fiorina running for president is, what's her platform? She failed up, I don't understand why we're putting people why she thinks she should be running for office when she has barely, if anything, she has negatives against her rather than any positives.
Well, the thing is because they kind of want to do the Sarah Palin effect. in a
Well, but
sense from
but at
2000.
least Sarah Palin was a governor. You know, she got elected to some position before she
Yeah,
decided to run, and it's not like she was running for president. She ran as a vice presidential candidate. It's such a
exactly.
radically different, you know, route to take than what Carly took. Obviously, they were both equally ineffective, but at least I
Yeah. Well,
respect Palin for doing it the right way. You know.
yeah. You know, that was also controversial. Now, granted, I don't know so much about the whole Sarah Palin controversy.
Well, I mean,
I
there
know
isn't
that
really
she was completely.
there isn't really even a
There wasn't.
controversy. It's literally just people decided to start calling her stupid and an idiot, and because she's a Republican, it's okay. You know, if you try to
Yeah,
call any other women that are Democrats or you know whatever, if you try to call
that's true.
try to call them idiots and simpletons, that's a huge no-no. But because she was running as the Republican, you know, on the Republican ticket, you know, it's okay to slander her with whatever you want to put on her. But you know, she never said I can see Russia from my house. That was the Tina Fey impersonation of her on Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
But the problem is the way that everything got reported, the way that people all remembered it. People remember Sarah Palin saying those words, despite the
Yeah,
fact that she never said them. So you know
that
the
happened. You know, that also happens. I could concede that. Like I said, I don't know so much. All I know that she was really just shit on by
and
everybody.
I think that you know obviously there is some amount of fair criticism. She didn't portray herself, you know, in the kind of way that that we would want her to, especially back in 2008. She wasn't the refined, you know, vice presidential candidate that people were expecting. I actually would draw a lot of parallels between the way that she was and her personality and the way that Trump is. Uh,
Yeah.
Obviously, the top of the ticket was McCain, so she couldn't pull off a lot of the same stuff that Trump did. But I have a feeling that if she was running with Trump or someone like her was running with Trump, they would have worked really well together.
Yeah, maybe. Now, this is just a personal opinion. When it comes to Sarah Palin, it seems like I was impressed with her when I was 16 when she ran again, ran with
Yep.
McCain. But like over the years, like she just became less and less impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest issue, she hasn't really gone and done anything. I think she
Yeah,
tried to be kind of a pundit at Fox for a while.
she
Um,
was. She had that terrible fireplace behind her.
yeah,
Uh,
the biggest problem she has is her voice is just kind of annoying.
actually, another one who falls under that category is Michelle Bachmann.
The is that the Netflix? No, who's Michelle Bachmann?
No, Michelle Bachmann was a representative from Minnesota,
Oh,
so she
that's
had
right.
that
Yeah.
really thick Minnesota
Sorry,
accent.
you talked
And
about a Michelle with a terrible voice, and isn't it Michelle Wolf that's on Netflix with her own TV show?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna look
I
that
don't
up
watch
now.
that much
I
Netflix.
don't either, but
Yeah.
she did the controversial abortion video where she did like a
Uh.
paraded around and was doing like a march.
Huh. I don't know. I don't know about Michelle
She did.
Wolf, but all I know.
Yeah, she's the here she is.
Oh,
She's the
oh,
crazy.
oh.
Here she is. She's
Yeah,
the
she was. She did the press
yeah,
conference.
no. She did
Or
the dinner, the correspondence
the
dinner.
dinner.
Yeah, she's the
Yes, I
crazy
remember. Yeah.
correspondence dinner. You know, it's amazing how you can. I just typed in Michelle Wolf, right? None of the
Yeah.
pictures are that awful abortion sketch she did, which is probably what should pop up. You
Hmm.
know
Okay.
that there
Well,
you
I
got
mean, it
to
was
go
the.
all the way down to like you know right there to finally get the one thing she got a bunch of press for was the salute to abortion. But
Oh.
Google.
Was that just on Netflix, just by her own production, or
She's
was
got
that
her
with
own
another?
show. She has her own show on
Okay.
Netflix. I think it airs weekly or something like that. I don't know. Never watched it. Probably never will. But of course,
Never
but
have
of
either.
course, you
I
see
mean, the only time I heard about her was the press correspondence dinner,
she was really big
and
for that. I think that she got that gig because she was going to be on Netflix. And then
okay.
just
All I know
afterwards,
is that people were kind of surprised with her bit.
she was just
Um,
awful. She was just mean and nasty. Wasn't even really funny. You know?
that could be. I mean, I only watched a little bit of it. Um,
I
but
saw the highlights, so I guess I
okay.
can't be
I
too
just
sure of it. But if you look
I
at
just
this over
never.
here, There's just all
Maybe
sorts of crazy.
I don't know what's with me. I think it's just apathy. I don't particularly like the press correspondence dinner to begin with.
Yeah, it's not a good look
I don't like
in
that.
general.
It's just I just never. I think probably my favorite one was when they had Lewis Black.
Yeah, that must have been
Like
years ago.
it's like two. Oh, it was. It was actually Bush didn't even show up. Cheney was there.
Good. Yeah,
And
I support presidents not showing up to this charade, especially if they're Republicans. It's just a trap.
yeah,
You know, if I were Bush, I wouldn't have gone to any of them. They just get up there, roast you, make you sound like an idiot, and then you get 5 minutes to talk or whatever, and everybody gets to hate you, and
yeah. Well, to be honest, Republicans are kind of easy to make fun of.
everybody's easy to make fun of. That's the real
Yeah,
problem.
that's true.
That's the real
And,
issue is everyone's easy to make fun of. You know.
and
It,
if there's anything I've heard at least recently, the one thing that the left needs to be is funny again.
I'm
And
not sure that they were ever really funny, to be completely honest.
well, I think they're funny. I think some of them are really funny.
I'm sure
But
some. Obviously, there's people that are funny in every group, but I wouldn't say Republicans were funny either.
oh
Internet
no,
trolls are funny. So
oh
so
yes,
if the
they
left can
are.
find some good internet trolls, yeah, they'll be funny again, or they'll be funny. So
I don't even think that internet trolls are either conservative or liberal.
uh, you know, it.
I think they're just them.
I would say so too, and it definitely depends on the issue. There's a lot of there's certain issues, especially freedom of speech and that sort of thing, where conservatives line up with internet trolls. Of course, as an internet troll, your number one priority is to make sure you trolling.
Hey, I got a question. Just in the middle of the stream, just because this is like kind of a test
Yeah,
stream. I see that we have one viewer.
Ew.
Just wondering how that person is doing.
I have no idea. I posted a link in there for them. Want to look at kind of the article that you.
Well, if it just I want to say hi to that one viewer. Just
Thanks for
say hi in
joining
the
us.
comments or on the live chat. Just want to say hi, see how you doing.
No pressure. You can just continue watching
Yeah.
and listening if you want. We don't want to scare you away.
I am watching all the viewers.
Oh. We have no idea
Someone
who you are,
noticed me.
so you can just continue watching anonymously, and we'll continue our conversation.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's going to be up here anyway,
Well,
regardless.
I was hoping
So-
we could get some of our college Republican friends to join us, but doesn't look.
I just maybe I try to get hopefully some of my work friends.
Oh, nice.
Not all of them agree with me, so I would actually like them to hop on in if they have a chance to.
Great. I know I love people that disagree with me, and I love lively discussions and debates.
So I don't know if you can see who's viewing us or
No,
probably
no,
not.
I can't. Not from the app that I'm using.
Okay. So
Not sure you can even on YouTube. I think they kind of try to keep that stuff a little bit anonymous unless you start commenting.
probably. Probably. But nevertheless, for the viewer, I know it's been almost 50 minutes. It seems like we've been ignoring
Well,
you.
the interesting thing, I can kind of watch the viewers. It's got it up in the top right for me. The viewer can't go up and down. So the beginning, like the first 5 minutes, we had a viewer. Then it dropped out to 0, and now we're back up to 1. So
Hey, there we go. You know what? We have a viewer.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie. Like I'm happy about
me
that.
too.
We have
We
a viewer.
can just randomly go on at I don't even know what time it is. I don't have any clocks around here anywhere. 5:30 in the evening.
5:30. Yeah, 5:35.
Oh.
We have one watching individual. I love it.
But the nice thing is that this will get archived and saved. So.
Of course.
And I plan on downloading them from YouTube and ripping it out and putting it up as a podcast. Not this episode because it's more of a test to make sure that the Skype and.
I think at least on my end it's performing very well.
Oh yeah, it's been performing great. There was one time, so I'm sharing this screen with you right now, right? So you can see the cursor.
So I can see.
Yeah.
everything.
So down there at the bottom, there's the 30 FPS. That's what we're broadcasting at. So that's the upper limit of what I want to broadcast at, just because I don't have great internet. But there was only one time when that dipped down to like 0. So there's going to be a little bit of a blip in the recording, but other than that, it's been pretty solid. I can't complain.
No, I can't complain either, knowing that we kind of put this together.
Yeah. The only other thing I can do would be to get a long Ethernet cable and then string that out, when I'm broadcasting, just to get the best quality internet. But we'll see.
Yeah.
The other option is I've also got I've got Wi-Fi antenna and a really long USB cable. So I can kind of put that a little bit closer to the.
I mean, I'm running on Wi-Fi
Yeah.
too, so I have my little antenna right
Yeah,
here.
but
So
you're not doing quite as much as I am over the internet.
yeah,
So
that's true.
I
That's
have
true.
to I have to get
You know, but it does take a lot of bandwidth just to show this, and it's not because I'm pretty.
a lot of it.
A lot of it. A lot of
No,
it. A
but
lot of my internet. It's just this face right here.
so I'm pulling in your Skype feed. I'm giving you out a Skype feed, but then I'm also broadcasting a YouTube stream as well. So that takes a bit of bandwidth.
Yeah. So no, it does. It does. I'm just saying is that maybe the load, at least on my end, it's just this potted, scarred, uneven face right here.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
I do I sound pretty good with this mic?
yeah, you sound
Yeah.
great. You sound great. You sound probably better than me.
I wouldn't know. I bought this like a year or two ago when I was originally going to start trying to get into podcasting, but it never happened. So
That
like
happened. You know.
the whole setup with the arm and all the cables and everything was like $50.
Oh, it's not bad. How about the? Is that a Blue Yeti? The
No,
microphone?
it's a cheapo Chinese knockoff of something.
Something.
Originally, I couldn't get it to work very well, but it seems like it's doing pretty well today.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad at all. You know, I'm just using my Sennheisers, so maybe I don't look professional.
No,
enough,
this
so.
is actually pretty much how the pros do it. They get some cans and put them over their ears. So how it goes, because you want to have the headphones, so I'm not broadcasting it back to you.
Yeah, no, because if I did my speakers, my walls would be shaking, and there'd be like this horrible like reverberation.
Yeah, my
terrible.
booming bass would just be rattling your walls right now, wouldn't it?
yeah, probably if I use my
Yeah.
speakers, but I don't.
Yep.
It'd just be booming my ears.
You know, you changed your camera angle, but in our original broadcast, we both had our flags hanging in the background.
That's true. But like I say, that's my. Hold on, it would be over there. That would be my flag. Actually, one of two flags.
Sorry, somebody just was upset that Kevin wasn't on the stream, so I'm answering them right now. I was a little distracted for a second.
Oh, hey, wait, is that our viewer? They miss Kevin? Or we miss Kevin too. So yes, we're missing Kevin too. He decided to be on the right side of the river and going shopping.
Yep. Oh, we have two viewers
So-
now. We're up to two.
We're up to 2?
Ah, is that
Man.
Kevin? I could see Kevin. The person's name is Kev Esco.
Kev Esco. Oh.
Is that Kevin?
Is
I
that
don't
Kevin?
know.
Kevin, is this you?
It might be.
Are you trying to make me spill? Hey, there we go.
Why don't you join us? You can hop in, take
Yeah,
up
why don't you
half
join
the
us,
screen
Kevin?
of Mikey.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But Kevin deserves it.
It's his half. You're intruding upon his half currently.
I thought that's what white people
Yeah,
do.
that's our goal. Colonize.
Colonize. I'm colonizing his third of the screen.
Would it also be colonizing us using his labor?
Oh, I think it's so.
So
I
either way,
think
we're
so.
just evil white people.
Yeah, it's
There's
true.
any there's any number of ways to spin it so that white people are evil and awful. As as Sarah Jung pointed out. You know a little bit about that, right, Mikey?
No, but a little
New
bit
York
what?
Times. I think she's an editor, tech editor, or
Oh,
columnist.
yeah, the lady who got hired who spits out racist tweets like against white people like
Yeah.
no other. Yeah, I heard about her.
Yeah.
You know what? That's just the game now. I mean, it's been a game like that for
Well,
years.
I think the game's shifting over. Actually, I would imagine that in the next couple years, the left is going to start having to reckon with the things that they've been promoting. I don't think most people, even most minorities, really think that white people are evil and awful and the cause of all of their problems.
No, only if they go through college.
Yeah, it's college that does it, and it's anybody that's hired at the anybody hired in the the mainstream media is going to have that kind of a bent, just because that's how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just they're going to reckon with it because it's eating them. They're eating each
Well,
other now.
they don't have a platform to run on. The platform they're running on is F Trump, and then everybody's kind of happy with Trump at the moment. The economy's rocking and rolling at 4.1% GDP growth. We've got one of the we got some of the lowest unemployment numbers. Hey, I can't speak to anything that's going to happen in the future because nobody knows.
Well, no one does know, but I just find it kind of strange that the low employment numbers that people have been ripping on since Romney's election, all of a sudden under the right president is actually true.
Oh yeah, no, I don't believe that we're at 4.1% unemployment, for a second, because that's a U6 number. And if we want it, we can discuss that a little bit if you want.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Go ahead.
So, from an economic standpoint, U6 unemployment, we can take a look at it. U5 includes discouraged workers and all other marginally attached workers. U6 adds on those workers who are part-time purely for economic reasons. So, essentially, this includes a bunch of people that are underemployed. So that you've got a PhD, but you're flipping burgers at McDonald's. That would be an example of underemployment.
Okay.
It also leaves out people that haven't been looking for work in more than a year. Essentially, the thinking is that, well, you figured out how to survive without a job. So clearly, you're not looking for a job anymore, and you're not unemployed. But you're still just as much of a drag on the economy. You're still, you know what I mean? You're not providing a valuable service.
But nothing's reported. Yeah. So, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, and my memory is really fuzzy. So, for our future viewers, my memory is going to be very fuzzy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to blame Taco Bell, even though that my co-hosts and all my friends, even my family have intervened, saying no to the Taco Bell. But that's not going to happen because Taco Bell is bae. Just want to let everyone know that. But from what I remember was under Mitt Romney, right? Because I think it was 8%, or like it was like either between 8 or 9% unemployment, and that was like a record, right? Because it was going down. And so the major criticism, at least from Romney and the conservative platform or the Republican platform, was that that's not the true numbers, right? Because it doesn't count for people not looking for work, people, as you just said.
Well, so I pulled up a. One of my favorite sites when I'm actually trying to look at what's going on with the economy. It's called Shadow Stats. So there's the official U3 numbers, and I got this a little backwards. The U3 numbers are the ones that get reported. So if you're looking at a news report and they're talking about the unemployment rate, they're going to look for the U3 numbers, that red line there at the bottom. And as you can see, as you get the different stats, they correspond to each other because it's gonna the lines are gonna go in the same direction because that's where the economy's going. But you can look at the U6; those numbers are even higher, and then the Shadow Stats numbers, which are based off of the original what they used kind of during the Great Depression. Those numbers, that's what Shadow Stats is using. So at the moment, the Shadow Stats numbers actually show that we're about as bad as the Great Depression right now.
For unemployment? What was it? 20, 25%?
Right now, what it's showing is about 23, 24%. Well, there at the end, it goes down to about 22.
Oh wow.
So, but that's basically, from my understanding, it's just you take all the workers in all the working age people in the United States, factor in how many people are actually employed, and then you get the unemployment number. That's how Shadow Stats does it. So this would include mothers and that sort of thing as well.
A lot of people.
It would include a lot of people. It wouldn't include underemployed, I don't believe. But essentially, because they drop off the people that aren't currently looking for work, it makes the economy look a lot better. But as you can see, the employment has increased since 2016.
Oh, that's not a doubt.
So the economy is doing better.
Is it now in comparison to say to 2008 or let's say 2012 when it comes to working? Does the criticism of part of the increased amount of part-time jobs factor into this, just as a, because that was also a criticism of Obama, was that, hey, employment numbers are going down, there are more jobs, but they're all part-time jobs. Are they really jobs?
Problem.
Right. So I don't know if you remember that
Yes.
criticism. That at
So
least
so in
that at all.
2008, it was a much different question than it is here in 2018. And
Okay.
even than it was in 2016. So 2008. That's, you got to remember, that's literally 1 year after the iPhone came out. That's the year that the App Store launched, actually. So the iPhone
Right.
went a whole year without having an App Store. So then at 2008, you have the App Store, and you start seeing these sharing economy apps pop up. Because now I can bring my computer with me wherever I go and have some data available to do something, right? So you see apps like Uber pop up. I think they were like 2011, 2012. Lyft, Instacart, all of this sharing economy, all of these jobs, and these jobs are here to stay. They're not going to go away anytime too soon. Maybe in the next 10, 15 years we get the automation necessary to completely eliminate them, but for the moment, those are, I don't know if I should say viable, but those are slightly better jobs than part-time flipping burgers. So.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, it's just I'm just talking not from just from the political criticism, because it just seems like a lot of the criticism under the last president, and maybe if you may bear with me, under the last president, the last two presidents, let's say the end of Bush and all of, let's say, the Obama era, it seems like that the criticism is not consistent. Since Obama left office.
I would probably agree with you that most pundits aren't consistent in their criticisms.
Okay.
I was only setting up that as a, so that the years, the setting between 2008 and 2016 are completely different.
Of course, that's true. I mean, that's irrefutable.
So even at its most base level, the definition of what a part-time job has changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you
sense.
have to look at it from that perspective. Has the criticism changed because the society that we live in and the kinds of jobs that are available have changed, or have they changed because of the president? And you're probably correct that it's likely that the criticism changed because of who the president is. So
okay, it's just because when it came to even in his last election, when it came to the employment numbers, it wasn't right. When the economy, there was an uptick in the economy, but it's still a bad economy. We can't trust GDP growth because this is a bad economy. But now when this president, if you may let me continue just for a moment, is now because he said this is the best economy, right? He's now taken this economy as his.
Yes.
My worry is, as much as I'm indifferent and neutral to the president, my worry is that now if in his term the economy takes a dump,
he will get blamed for it. The key question with that is when. Okay? I think the election comes up on November 6th. I believe that's the date. So it's the Tuesday that's around that date.
Yes.
So the election happens right then. If the economy tanks the day after, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter because everybody's vote's already been cast. Everybody's already locked in. So the only thing Trump needs to worry about currently is that to make sure that problem doesn't happen on November 5th. As long as it happens November 7th, he's set. Because then he's got a whole two more years to figure out policies and to figure out a way to tell people that he is taking responsibility for it and righting the ship.
Or if this is the blue wave that people have been predicting, I don't know what your thoughts on that, or if that should be. I would imagine we can shelve that concept for a later episode.
That should definitely come up on our next podcast. This isn't going to be put up as a podcast, so
no.
I have some very strong feelings about that.
Of course. Oh, maybe. I mean, I think we've discussed it in the past before, but let's just say, if the blue wave does happen, and say if the economy does tank the day after, then he can somewhat wiggle his way out. But usually not.
He's actually got a lot of room to wiggle out of it, and the room that he has to wiggle out of it are literally these Democrats and leftists that are on record saying that they want to see a bad economy to get Trump out of office. So he can literally start doing campaigns where he plays those audio recordings, right? And then shows, look, I wanted to do this. The Democrats stopped me. I wanted to do that. The Democrats stopped me. I wanted to do, show all of these bills and all of these things that Trump wants to do, and then say, look, the Democrats wanted this recession. They did everything in their power. You've got Facebook, you've got Google, you've got George Soros, all of these billionaires that are Democrats, right? And you can easily spin it to say, look, I was doing everything that I could, but these bad actors really just wanted the economy to tank because they hate me so much. And it just shows how much contempt they have for you as an average American, because they're willing to make you go through hell just to get me out of office and to get Republicans out of office. So there are narratives that he's already, starting to prime and starting to set up that he can fall back on, even if the economy does tank. And I'm not saying that.
Well, if the economy does tank, it's going to be dirty. Politics will be dirty.
It's going to be no holds barred for sure.
If we think if it's dirty now, it's going to be really, really dirty.
We're playing patty cake right now, compared to Depression 3.0.
Well, I mean, and the thing, I don't know, because don't want to name drop for our one viewer here, for another, the biggest podcast in human history would probably be Joe Rogan.
I think right now he's number 8, so I'm not sure.
Number 8.
Yeah.
Oh man, well I think
he's got a ton of viewers.
He's biggest in my. He's biggest in my heart.
There's a few others like Mike Rowe actually that's got a pretty big podcast. I think his might be bigger.
I wouldn't be surprised. But nevertheless, I say if Joe Rogan is the biggest podcast in my heart, which is true. It's the biggest podcast in my heart. He had a guy, was economist Peter Schiff on. I don't know if you ever listened to him.
I don't think I listened to that episode actually. When was it? Was that a while ago?
It was a couple weeks ago. It was about a week or two ago, I believe.
Like 3 or 4.
But ends up that he was the guy who went on predicting the crash of 2008, right? So that's kind of where he gets his fame.
Oh, was he the guy that was predicting that we were going to see another economic downturn here coming up pretty soon?
About 3 or 4 years, yeah.
Oh, he's saying 3 or 4 years? Oh, yes. Wow, because so essentially the economy's on about a 10-year cycle, which is interesting. It kind of lines up with the sun to a certain extent, but
Well, I would say is that it would be on a 10-year cycle if it wasn't accelerated.
Yeah, so that's what.
At least from what I observe, and I think he said this too, is that we've still been putting out cheap paper into the economy
up until this year
at very low interest.
Up until this year, they've actually started raising the interest rates, which is alarming.
Well, they have to do. They have to do it. I mean, I'm on board with that. They have to start. The Fed has to start raising interest rate. Now, personally, I wish it was the Treasury Department and the Fed just went away.
Yeah.
But
I'm not a fan of the way the Fed exists either.
Because they exist, they have to raise interest rates, because the one thing is keeping interest rates so low and putting infusing too much money into the economy. When if there is another crash, you can't lower interest rates any lower, and you still have to print money. So you're going to have another stagflation like the 70s.
I hope not. I
hope not either. Nobody wants that.
And the crazy thing is really the only power that the president has over the economy is what he says and his ability to instill confidence.
Pretty much.
And that's actually one of the biggest things, and why you saw a stock market rise happen, pretty quickly after he got elected, because he started the way that he was talking and the way that he started talking after, it inspired confidence in the consumers. I haven't seen a chart, but I'm going to look up a consumer confidence index.
Well, I mean, this is kind of the ironic thing when anyone talks about economics and talks about the economy. Usually that we attach a president's name to it, or in the state we attach a governor's name to it. The thing is they have no control over the economy.
I wouldn't say no, because consumer confidence is a huge indicator.
There isn't direct policy that he can enact that can make the economy better or worse.
Well,
right? It's just consumer confidence.
The policy is make sure that you speak in such a way that instills confidence. And that's what he does very effectively. And you can see, obviously you can see that Obama had a little bit of an effect on consumer confidence, and it had been rising since 2008, where it was obviously in the garbage. But you can see right here is where it was for Bush, That's the end of George Bush's term. It had just started to slip in 07, 08, right?
And it just
right
drops.
there. So that's not Obama's fault. Something
No.
happened in here. He did. Obama did a decent job of having it rise, but there at the end, you saw a little dip, and then Trump's just kind of skyrocketed right back up.
Now, this is what, if I'm going to quote Peter Schiff, what he was saying was, if Hillary got elected, the economy would have tanked.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right
I think I absolutely think
right
so
then
because
and there.
she instills the confidence of a wet blanket.
No, yes, she does. And it's sad, and this is probably for another episode, just because this is a test stream. Our one and only cherished viewer, how may I call it, is it would have dropped. Oh, that's what he's saying. You would, man. I've told you there's space out there. It's terrible.
No worries. We've been going for an hour and 10 minutes.
It would have tanked.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, we have.
I don't mind keep going though.
God damn. I can keep going. I can keep going. But it tanks. It would tank under her because she didn't inspire confidence. Now, but the thing is about confidence is you don't have to endure the right economic policy to ensure her confidence. So this is the thing that maybe is maybe not a critique, maybe let's say a critique, a friendly critique, is that what Bush had, what were the policies under Bush, right? Low percentage. What started pretty much from 9/11, right? Was after 9/11 you have you push paper cheaply with very little interest, but they did it for way too long.
That was more of a Greenspan policy, though, wasn't it?
Greenspan?
Alan Greenspan, the chairman of the Fed.
I would say so.
It's not like it was a Bush policy. It was just during his...
No, but it was just.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear.
Bush. Yes, of course. I don't mean to be too vague. That's just the era in which
exactly.
I'm talking about, right? And so pretty much this policy was just what we saw, before the crash, and then right at the crash, and then at the crash they lowered interest rates to like near zero.
Okay.
And they pushed even more money out, more paper, and it seems like that has not changed up until you say that they raise interest rates.
We can take a look at the Fed's interest rates.
I mean, I think that would be important to at least to take a look at least at this point.
Oh yeah.
August 7th.
Where does this start? Is there a bigger one? And
at least a bigger map.
That's what I'm looking for.
At least for those who are watching.
LIBOR rate. Okay, that's on the London market. I don't want London.
No, the Fed.
Sorry, still doing this, on the fly.
Yeah, right?
Oh.
I think we both are.
Yep. Treasury, there we go. That's got to be... No, that's the bond. It's the bond rate. Where's the...
So, at least...
If you have a chart, just send it on over.
I don't have a chart. I just have an article.
Okay, so they've been ramping it up since 2016. Actually, is what it looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see this, but essentially.
So what does it? So what does it say? What are the dates you have, and what does it say? Because on my end, it's really tiny.
So right over here, that's about 2009, 2008, 2009 is when they started plummeting it, and then it flatlined for, 7 years, all the way till 2016, where it just ticked up, and then it's been creeping back up towards 3.5%, which is about where it started. Let's see, 10 years. Where am I at? Let's see the max. Yeah. So max, back in the 80s, we had 20%. That was to try to stagflation.
That was the curve stagflation, but that doesn't work with stagflation.
No, it doesn't. So you can
it doesn't work.
So you can see that it only got up there for a little bit and they dropped it like a rock. So, but then I mean that's some crazy manipulation of the markets right there.
Exactly. So now look at Bush. You can probably see where that downtick is. It's probably right after 9/11.
And the funny thing is I don't remember how this was actually going to work, and it technically doesn't make sense. But there were actually some central banks that were looking at negative interest rates.
meaning that they would actually give money
Yeah, I
upon
don't
the.
know how that was going to work because they weren't going to be giving them money, but it was going to be some weird. Maybe they were going to issue them bonds or something. I don't. I have no idea.
Hmm. That's it. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
that
That's
was some of the that
I'm
was
not a
some stuff that they were thinking about in like Greece to deal with their calamity that they've been going through for the last 10 years.
Jesus. But pretty much. So if you so as I'm so with that chart, at least coming from under the Bush presidency, not his policy, but under
Yeah,
the time
so
of his
we're
tenure as
saying
president,
2000, 2000 to 2008.
8, right? Interests are pretty low, you know.
Right here.
Um,
That's
and
right
then
about it started dropping actually right about 2000.
yeah, so pretty much around 2000, you get about 2001, it significantly drops, and then it's pretty low for a significant amount of his term, and then they start raising rates, and then happens that the bubble collapses because of such low interest rates for the years that he was in, help accelerate a bubble that popped in real estate and the securities and the insurances that were around those securities. But then to fix the problem, they more or less did the same policy, and this has kind of been a criticism of myself, or my criticism of the last president was um, that he just they always just kept they just did the policies, but they just did it more extreme, and so
Like you can, as you can see, that's before 2000, looks like 8 or 9. The interest rate historically hadn't even been at zero, and then starting right then, it's there for 7 8 years.
yeah,
That's incredible the amount of money that they were.
and they're putting more money
Yep.
into the economy, and this is the Fed. This isn't the president.
Well, and
So
and
I mean,
and I
again,
think most people don't understand that there is a difference between that. The United States president does not have direct control over the Fed. It's a
I don't think most people know that there's anything else but the president in government.
yeah, that and their senator and their Congress critter as a.
No, not even. I don't even think that. I don't think most people don't even know the representative.
It's true. It's true.
I don't like. I don't even like. So, well, what happens when something dumb happens in government? What's the president going to do about it?
Yeah, true.
You know. So it's
Yeah,
just
I wonder.
it's
I
so.
wonder how many people know who Paul Ryan is. Or what position he has in
Maybe we
government.
could maybe look at Google Analytics or something. You could probably do a Google search. The percentages. I forgot what that program on Google's
Yeah,
called.
well, you can
Where
look
you
at
can.
what people are looking up, but I would imagine they're looking up Paul Ryan because they don't know who he is. So,
Yeah,
you're
probably.
not looking up Paul Ryan because you know who he is necessarily.
Yeah. So it's just. So but getting back to my point is that good, fiscal policy that is either questionable or bad can also be construed as consumer confidence. You know what I mean?
I know what you're saying.
Okay. So I mean, so like that's what Obama did. You think those interest rates were insane. Now looking back on it, they look insane. But at the time, you know, that was probably the only thing the Fed could do.
It's definitely something that the Fed can do, and they have very few actual tools. But
Yeah. So I don't want to, like I say, I don't want to be like uh I'd say like 2020 hindsight, but it seems like that what I'm doing right now to kind of prove my argument. But I wish we can. But like at that time, like what could the Fed do, right? If they had raised interest rates, it would have. I don't know. I don't know what the situation with the economy would be
yeah,
like.
no, it
All I know is that the result is that the economy right now is running on a bunch of inflated
yeah, well,
currency that they got at very very
and
low
you can
percentage.
definitely see how inflated it is with the GDP increase and with the stock market.
Yeah. So I mean, is that like a true increase? Is that like what I mean, like a genuine
Yeah.
increase in a
Well,
sense?
and I think
Um,
people got a much better idea of how little actual value there is especially in these new tech companies. So you look at Facebook, they lost 100. I think it ended up being about $120 billion worth of their value in the course of like 2 or 3 days. Okay, and that was
Whoa.
all just speculation. That was all people just saying, I know Facebook, I've heard of Facebook, so their stock must be good, right? And then they buy their stock, so more people buy the stock, which causes the price to go up, and then it puts the
Yeah.
valuation of the company at this insane, at this insane number where they can stand to lose $120 billion and still be a viable company. Now,
Yeah. I think it's funny is that what stands to be a viable company is what their rate, what the rate of their stocks
yeah,
are. I mean, like, let's go back to
but
the old
yeah,
Enron, right, in
the,
2000.
the
Great
stock
stock
price and market cap is a terrible way to try to assess the actual value of
to
a
judge a
company.
company. But everybody
Yeah,
does
well,
it
that
now.
that it's the main metric because it's one of the easiest to
Hell,
calculate.
hell, hell. We assess our entire economy off of it.
Much, that's what the Fortune 500 and the Nasdaq, all that's based off of market
Yeah.
caps.
And I don't think that's right. Market caps and money, that doesn't exist.
Nope, just a bunch of paper. Well, my buddy keeps pointing out that there were there were probably people that took out loans based on Facebook's Facebook stock price. You know, if so you can back a loan with this idea that a company is worth this much, and then the next day you've got half as much value as you did before.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me that it's an asset that you can list as something to back a loan, right?
Yeah, right.
It's insane.
So, but it's just this is the way, like, and it just seems like the easier metrics, right?
Oh yeah, well it's such an
Or the
easy
way.
metric to calculate because we know how many shares outstanding a company has, and we know what the price is. So you just multiply
Yeah.
those
But
numbers,
the
and
funny thing is the easiest way to raise your stock is just to cut overhead.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of ways to increase your stock price artificially through manipulation of the numbers. That's the entire game for a
Well,
lot of these
that's manipulation
companies.
of the numbers, just manipulation of your company.
Yeah, well,
So you can actually make less from one quarter to the next. You can make less, but if you cut a significant amount of overhead or your net expenditure, so the net is the proportion between the surplus of your revenue is higher. That increases your stock.
the other thing that you can do is you can actually a lot of companies can start requesting their vendors to either charge them later or allow them to pay later. So you can reap the profits, air quotes profits, from one quarter, and then you don't have to pay off the costs of doing business until the next. So you can
Oh wow.
report that you made all this profit. It's actually one of the schemes that Elon Musk has been employing to make Tesla look better. Yeah,
Oh
he's been
really?
having a huge problem with his stock price. So he put out a letter to his vendors asking them to put off getting paid until the next quarter. Yeah.
Oh okay.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Either it was either that or he was asking to be allowed to pay off his debts next quarter, if not both.
Mm,
So there's a
okay.
lot of manipulation that you can do that increases the numbers that you put out um, in your accounting books. There's a lot of tricks.
Okay. You know what? It seems like the more manipulations and the more tricks that people use to make themselves look good is kind of an example of how not good
Oh
things
yeah, well
actually are.
the more dirty tricks you have, the worse things actually are for your company. Because a company that's doing spectacular like Apple, they don't need to goose the numbers as much. I'm sure they're still doing stuff to increase their profits, but they don't need to fake it. That's the difference. You know, whatever they're doing is decreasing their tax burden by going to Ireland and having something over there, and then the Dutch thing. I don't know if that still exists or not, but
I
you,
wouldn't
you know what
know.
I'm talking about.
Not
So
really, actually. If you
yeah,
want to.
so basically, what companies like Google and a lot of the major corporations, what they'll do is they have all of their assets located in Ireland, because in Ireland they have a 0% corporate tax rate. Um,
Okay, okay. I
and
see what
and so
you're doing.
so
I
you
see what
have
you're
all your
saying.
assets and all of your profits being made in Ireland, and then there was some reason why they needed to go through the Netherlands too. So it was the Irish loophole and double Dutch, workaround or something. There was some clever name for it that I'm forgetting now.
Okay.
But essentially, so you have your corporation set up in Ireland, you have some number of employees or something in the Netherlands, and then that means that your company's only paying like 2% corporate tax rate in the United States, or 2% tax rate overall, despite the fact that the United States has a 30% corporate tax rate or whatever it is now. That
Huh. Well, didn't it? Wasn't it because I think it was under Obama they passed that bill at your headquarters in the United States,
So they may have taken
and
care of
something
that.
like
That
that.
that may not be possible anymore, or that could have been. But here's the thing: these corporations have just teams of lawyers and accountants and tax experts, legal experts, and
Yeah.
lobbyists that all sit there and just go through every single line of the tax code and figure
Oh.
out
Oh yeah.
Well, and it's not even just the tax code of the United States; it's the tax code of
Every
every
tax code
country in the stable country in the world.
that they
You
that
know.
they work through. Now, like individuals do that too.
Yeah, but we don't have
I mean
nearly the
I mean
options
that
that
was
the
the
mega
thing.
corporations do.
Oh no, I mean unless you yourself are wealthy enough. Like I know Mitt Romney was criticized for
Yep.
that, right? He says I pay my taxes, I pay my fair share of taxes. Well, he might have. He made a lot of money off
Yep.
investing, because that's all most of his income was by the time he ran for president. Wasn't an actual income. It was all
Well,
investment income,
his whole business
which is
was
which is
business.
technically,
His whole company was buying other companies, and then
yes, but he wasn't
yeah.
getting a
Oh, he
salary.
wasn't taking a salary for that.
So
But I mean, just because you're not taking a
no,
salary
all of
doesn't
it.
mean you're not making money from a company.
No, that's what I mean. Is that it was all investments. So it's all shares. So all the money that he's investing with, and so technically you pay 15% on how do you call it? Or at
So
least at the time
yeah,
it was
so
15%.
you pay 15% on
Your earnings.
not it's not on earnings, it's on it's investments. There's a term blanking on it
Yeah.
right now.
But if you make it, like you say, if you make a surplus, make money off of money that you invested, you get taxed 15% on the money that you made.
I think those rates are relatively similar under the new tax plan.
I would imagine so. Usually it doesn't change. I don't think it's changed for a very long time. But nevertheless, is that he was supposed to pay 15%, and then it came out that he was paying anywhere between 8 something percent and like 12 something percent.
It was capital gains, by the way.
Capital gains.
That's the term.
That's it. That's it. Again,
Yep,
memory's fuzzy.
same.
But nevertheless, he was making it was, as low. I heard was like 8% or 7%, but I think it was like actually like 11 or 12%. So even then, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? He's
Well, there was the whole scandal of Buffett, who was paying some fraction of a percentage compared to what his secretary was making.
yeah. It seemed like they said his secretary was paying like 60 something percent in taxes, and Warren Buffett was paying under 15.
He was paying like 2%, or it was something stupid low. But the problem with Warren Buffett coming out and saying that he's against such low, tax rates for corporations and for rich individuals, you know that you can actually just donate your income to the federal government. Yeah, you.
Oh yes, there's a
Yep.
line in your tax form, like you can donate as much money to the
So
IRS as you
I
want.
don't want to hear him talk about how people need to pay more in taxes until he fills out that line with some big number. It's so disingenuous, and there has to be some ulterior motive for him to be coming out and saying that. Because if you really want to pay more in taxes, why don't you put your money where your mouth is and literally just give it to the United States federal government? I bet he could make $1 billion contribution to our budget deficit.
I think you can make more than $1 billion.
Of course, but I'm just saying that'd be
$1
a huge amount of money. Why doesn't he just give it to the federal government if it's that important? Why does he have to make everyone else pay? It doesn't add up to me. When people start claiming that everyone else should do something, but they're not willing to be an actual leader and do it themselves first, it upsets me, and I feel like there's got to be some other reason why they're doing it. That's when I start.
Well, the reason is they just want to push they want to push a budgetary policy, right, and a tax policy.
Well, my guess is that at the end of it, everyone will be paying more taxes if Warren Buffett had his way, not just corporations.
Oh no, everybody would pay taxes. Isn't that the criticism under this new tax plan, anyway? Right?
I have no idea. Did they lower the tax brackets?
No, what it was that technically the middle class and let's say the elite, the upper class took, you know, a significant tax cut, but ends up that the middle class tax cut is only is not indefinite. It only lasts for a couple of years, while those who make a lot more money
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was like
end
10
up
years. Yeah.
end up keeping that tax cut permanently. So I mean it's kind of a similar issue.
It is.
Or not same issue, but well, it is similar. Is that technically that the people who shouldn't be paying more taxes, or let's say shouldn't be paying more taxes without the contributions of those that say who are making more, right? And at least in this case, and that's usually very let's say financially privileged individuals and corporate hegemons.
I
It still exists.
I think this is a pretty interesting conversation, and you tell me if we want to save it for an actual podcast. But
I think
well,
we could. I mean, I don't know
I was
what
going to say that I think it's interesting the different tax options and the different ideas behind taxes. I don't know about you, but I'm a
Yeah.
huge supporter of. I have to preface it with this is with the idea that all other taxes are eliminated and are impossible. So I would want an amendment before I do this. Okay, but
Yeah.
I think that that the most fair tax would be one on would be a national sales tax. Okay, so we eliminate the federal income tax. We eliminate any other federal tax. I would even say eliminate tariffs, except in the case of using them to eliminate tariffs with other countries, so as a bargaining tool. But literally get rid of all
Yeah.
other taxes. Make it a sales tax on everything but specific goods like food. I'd say food doesn't need to be taxed. Certain kinds of clothing, your home shouldn't be taxed. That sort of stuff. And then just literally tax everything else. And I would even be okay with having some luxury taxes. Tax $1 million yachts at 10% rather than 5%. That sort of thing.
I don't know about the just primarily relying on a sales tax. My only issue is that sale taxes are great when the economy is good, and people are buying.
Yeah, but I mean
Buying
it's the same with an
anything.
income tax. It's only good while people are employed.
Well, only employed, but tend to people stay employed and not have to buy things.
Yeah.
So the thing
Well,
is the thing that gets hit the hardest during any economic recession is not employment, but it's
okay,
sales
that's fair.
on goods.
I
So
the reason why I haven't that isn't actually a good criticism of my idea because I don't have a good argument for it, but from my understanding, I don't even know where I'm going anymore. I kind of just lost it midway. No. So,
well, no,
but
I mean, what I think the overall idea is a major reform in the
yeah,
tax system.
I want to see a major
Um,
reform. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I think we need to look at kind of a national sales tax. Personally, I just think it's the most fair, and to be completely honest, I don't think that the federal government should be running off of as much money as they have. You know,
well, well, the thing is that you have to cut spending.
Absolutely.
So,
I think we
but again,
both agree we need to cut
again,
spending no matter what.
yes, no matter what. But I would say if I had any ideas, and let's say probably my ideas and probably the fairest thing I would say if it's not just a sales tax, right? Let's say if the sales tax just doesn't work.
That's fair.
Let's just say probably my fairest thing is that you remove income tax and you base most of your income, the state's income, off of property taxes.
Yeah, I
I would agree with that. I would push for that because
my only concern with that is so the reason that I like sales taxes is because you can choose to avoid them. Does that make sense? You don't have to go
yes,
out
it
and
does.
buy the products that are taxed.
It's
So
voluntary.
it's more of a voluntary tax. So I like that already to
Right.
begin with. But the problem with putting it on sales tax is I know that my family and my mother right now if she had to pay more property taxes, that would just kill her, you know. And there's a lot of people that are retired, that they're living on these fixed incomes, and they just can't afford to be taxed on their property anymore. And
Yeah.
add on to that the fact that property taxes essentially mean that you don't even own your own property.
Well, in that value, but see how I well at least come from what I'm looking at it is unlike income taxes, right? I don't make extra money, or I don't get a tax or an economic benefit for an income tax.
Yeah.
Property taxes,
What
I
do you
do.
mean you don't get any
Right?
benefit for an income? Oh, because you're saying that
So
they're not benefiting your job. Is that essentially what you're saying?
no, well they don't benefit my job, but think of it this way, like you can write off a bit of your mortgage on your taxes.
Okay. But I mean, under
You
your
get
system, you wouldn't be able to write that off, under a property tax, would you? Like
what do
you'd
you
be
mean?
able to discount the value of your property based on the amount of money that you spent on your mortgage that year.
Well, I would say I'd probably keep property taxes low and probably just remove that.
But I mean, under the plan though, you can't keep them low. I mean, I guess it depends what your definition of low is. Because
Yeah.
it'd have to
But I don't.
equal roughly the amount of money that we have now. Whatever solution you come up with
Or
has to be within the ballpark.
yeah. But I mean, like I say, I don't have a great argument for this either. So I'm in the same boat as you are, at least in that sense. But it's just that when I look at certain things, and especially when it looks at the tax system, right? The tax system is used even today to still segregate people out from people who are privileged and people who are not. And what I see with property tax, or with property, is that you can get taxed on your property. That's true, but you also get write-offs for having a property.
But again,
Like being,
the write-offs the write-offs only exist in a system where there is an income tax. You're writing
yes,
off the amount of money you spent on your property, right? And counting that
right,
against the work that you did and the income that you gained. So under a system where
yeah,
we don't have an income tax anymore, is that what you're advocating, or are you saying that we should keep the income tax and then lessen it?
no,
Okay,
no,
so
no. I'm saying is keep property taxes as they are. Don't have the government spend, let's
well,
say the
currently the federal
write-offs.
government doesn't tax property.
No, that's up to
Yeah,
the
it's up to the
states.
states, and
So I would say maybe in that
have
case
to
then
increase
is that the states,
the federal property taxes.
yeah, which I would do it minimally because there's a bunch of property in the nation.
Well, it would,
That frees up.
yeah. No, it's okay.
Sorry, it would free up people who don't own property. Actually, it would
No,
free up
because
everybody
no.
because
No matter what you're paying, no matter what, every single person pays property tax. You're paying a property tax
yes,
right now.
yes, or I'm
No, you
technically
are,
not, but yes.
because whoever you're renting the room from pays
Oh,
property
yeah,
tax.
true, true,
So
true.
they're
That's true.
offloading
Yes,
that burden for whatever the square foot is that you take up in the house. They're offloading that amount of burden onto you, if not more. Generally, what people do is
yes,
they're going to raise your rent in excess of what your tax burden is going to be, in the off chance
yeah,
that the tax burden increases on them. You don't, because
yes.
you can't just raise prices willy nilly, especially not
No,
rent,
no,
because
no,
you're
no.
locked into a year long contract.
I would probably say, depending on what the property taxes are, I would probably just add maybe a couple extra percent that is allocated just straight to the federal
Yeah,
government. Right, so it wouldn't be too much.
that's not
You would
horrible.
have no income tax.
It's not terribly high right now in California, and that's not horrible.
No, no, it's not. It's not horrible. I don't think it's really horrible, except for maybe New York or New Jersey, um, and maybe some other bastions where taxes are just extremely high locally and statewide. I would probably just, like I said, just add a couple percent on property tax. I would remove income tax because again, it's just this concept of fairness. And so think of it this way, like you get more money back if you're married on your taxes and you file
Currently,
jointly
yeah,
than than individually. So what that what that shows to me is that the government wants you to be married,
yes, yeah, yeah.
right? Because you're giving it
Of
incentive to be
course,
married.
and of course, the thinking behind that is it's better for children and families.
Right. But again, it's a government incentive, not right. There's a government incentive on a lifestyle that the majority of people
Yes,
make,
that is true.
right? And that kind of goes into the gay marriage debate, in a sense, because they couldn't get those
And that was one of the
incentives
biggest reasons why
tax
people were
wide.
against including homosexuals in marriage, was because the reason why the government valued marriage in the first place was to create a place for families,
Yeah.
for children. Sorry, the reason that they valued marriage was it created a family, which was a better place to raise children. So,
But again, I'm just saying, if between classes of people, you give tax, and especially when it comes to property, people who own property get a benefit. That's say people who just pay straight income tax down.
that's totally true.
That's and so I don't know like how it would work in another system, or like in the system that I've created. It could be totally horribly flawed.
I just my biggest concern are the people that are incredibly poor and renting. They're going to get hit the hardest by this, as well as the elderly that had planned on being able to retire and pay their low property taxes. So in my brain, I'm starting to think about okay, we should probably have some kind of an exemption for somebody over a certain age. You're over 70, you don't pay property taxes anymore. But then my brain goes, oh, that's a loophole, and people will start just, putting everything in their grandpa's name, despite the fact that he's a senile old bastard and doesn't really know what's going on.
who's probably a ward of the state, or doesn't have control of his own affairs.
So you control them anyway, but you're avoiding property taxes because you're putting it in his name, and there's just
yeah. Like I said, I didn't think this through.
So that
it's just the concept that I would like, at least the value that I would like in my government, is that when I am taxed by my government, that the other person, no matter what rate that person is being taxed, is being taxed on the same fair grounds.
I would almost agree with your plan if it also carried with it you had to own property to vote.
That's not bad. That's not bad either. I wouldn't. Yeah.
If we didn't tax rental properties, right? Because that's the biggest problem is how do we keep this burden from being unduly placed upon people that are renting? Because that's the biggest problem with it is and how do you take care of little grandma?
Yeah, well the thing is okay, so let's go down that avenue. If we don't tax rental properties, right?
Just start classifying.
Who's going to benefit?
I know.
Well, not just rental property, but who's the ones who's not going to pay taxes? Like the Irvine.
Well, yeah, but again, like I said, on their rental properties, they're already not paying the taxes. No rental property is. They are not paying the taxes. The rent just gets increased because the taxes are the same for everyone, roughly.
But the thing is, like, and this would be, let's say, an argument that you would have from lowering corporate taxes, right? Let's say from the left. What's going to stop them from raising prices anyway? So it would be the same thing in the rental property.
Oh yeah.
Right. So let's say if we exempt rental properties, it doesn't mean that prices are not going to go up.
No, I agree, but the problem when you're making a switch like this is you're taking a class of people that are not currently being taxed. Anyone that makes any family that makes less than $50,000 a year is not currently taxed. I would imagine that pretty well correlates to people who are renting property, right? So you're taking those people who aren't currently facing a tax burden, at least from the federal government, and you're not burdening them with this monumental rental fee increase that they're going to see, And again, same with little old grannies and everybody that was planning on their retirement, and they have the $2,000 or $3,000 a year that they had set aside because they knew that Prop 13 was going to protect them, and then all of a sudden the feds come in with a property tax,
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just like, again, but like I said, going off of a different, maybe the concept, at least that the value, and I haven't really thought this through.
What was your problem? What issue did you come up with the sales tax? Because it just goes down in bad economies. But again, the government would just be able to use its fiscal policy to increase the money supply anyway. They can goose the numbers and they can kind of play around with the amount of money in circulation. You know what I mean? Which obviously causes inflation and isn't good, but there's ways they can kind of make up for the fact that we're in a recession.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's just still, if they're goosing the numbers, then we're still in the same position that we are in right now.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so like it's just so
There is no
I don't know. It's just
perfect theft.
no. There is no. I would say no. There's no perfect theft, but there isn't a how about this? The tax system, the tax issue is not going to be solved if expenditure doesn't get under control.
That's completely true. That the other reason that this tax system won't, this tax problem won't ever be solved is we have too many CPAs. I mean, there's literally millions of people that rely on the tax code being 10,000 pages long, and they rely on, you not being able to do it yourself and get the best value. It's literally millions of people. It's not some small, everybody knows an accountant.
That's true. Yeah, no, it's and that's not even just CPAs, but then lawyers that
exactly
revolve around individual taxes or income taxes.
The whole tax preparation
or
industry is insanely big. But that's the other thing is that under my sales tax plan, they would have jobs. That you would still need to have accountants going over the numbers and crunch the numbers from retailers and internet sales and everything else.
Yeah. That's true.
It would save some of those jobs. Oh. The problem with the sales tax, with the property tax thing, is now you got to go pay a bunch of people to be property assessors, and the IRS essentially shifts over into a property evaluation company.
Yeah.
Like the Kelly Blue Book for houses.
For the guns.
Well, that's every United States federal department. They pretty much all have guns.
Agency. Well, no, but still, you know what? Your house is worth. Hi, we're through IRS, and just want to let you know your house is worth this much. No, but I think my house is worth this much. No.
Well,
your house is worth this much.
You know what? That's probably the biggest reason why the feds don't have a property tax, is because it would mean they'd have to come into your house. You really want the feds coming in and assessing quote unquote assessing the value of your property? Oh, they're also looking for how many guns you got. They're also looking for the meth lab you got in the basement. Not that I think you should be able to have meth labs in the basement, but it's a very intrusive idea.
Of course, it's an intrusive idea, and it's going to cost more on the federal bureaucracy to take care of it. And that's kind of the one thing I want to limit.
I do think it's important that we have these discussions, because I think a lot of people just take the status quo of, there's an income tax and there's a state sales tax, and that's just kind of how it is. Let's not look into it or change anything, because
it's just kind of how it is, even though many people are fucked by it.
Well, and it's a terrible system. There's lots of waste and lots of corruption, and I'm of the opinion we need to constantly be questioning everything and reevaluating everything. We have 350 million people in this country. There's an extra 100 million people that didn't exist back in 1970, and there's an extra 250 million people from whenever the hell this tax code was originally developed. There's got to be somebody in that number of people that's significantly smarter than whoever decided to come up with it in the first place. Does that make, you know what I'm saying? So.
Oh no, is it? But isn't that just the criticism overall when it comes to anyone who runs government or is in government?
But I mean, the problem is that people just aren't looking for new ideas. We have the society we have, and we are the United States because we value new ideas. We value research.
We thought we valued new ideas, or we thought that we valued, let's say at least a discussion between people who had new ideas.
Well, I think we still do.
People are individually responsible for the ideas that they hear, or to do with the to react to the ideas.
And I think that the problem we're running into is a very vocal minority of people that don't want us to be looking at new ideas because racism or sexism or whatever.
Yeah.
There's a very small vocal minority. And the problem is that they've infiltrated the HR departments at the universities. They've infiltrated them at the major corporations. YouTube, Google, Microsoft. They all have SJW HR departments.
Well, I think it's also the value too is that I think a significant amount of people rely or want to rely, and now we do rely on corporate hegemons, as we discussed in the first, the first episode.
The funny thing
to filter speech.
Funny
for
thing
them.
about this is everybody brings up the comparison between Nazis and modern day democratic socialists, and it's true that is the exact way that they went. That fascism is a melding and a interplay between corporations and the government. That is what fascism is. They take over the means of production, and the state runs it and state controls it, despite the fact that it's still technically in private hands. That's the definition of Nazi.
Technically, if you want to go to the technical nitty gritty, what it is that people privately own businesses, but they're part of the party and part of the state.
That's what I'm saying. Those are slightly different
so
words
it's not
for exactly the sentiment I was trying to convey.
Yeah. So, but what it is, but
actually similar to what China
you would
is
imagine
right now, if you want to look at it, they've moved towards more of a fascist model than a communist because they're starting to have more private ownership.
Yes, but it's a national capitalistic model where, unlike, let's say, the state just benefits the capitalistic market, or let's say the capitalistic industries. What we see now is that those capitalistic industries are part of the state.
And that's what it was in Nazi Germany. That's why Volkswagen started making the people's car. That's what it's called. It's called Volkswagen, the people's car. You know?
Yeah.
But it wasn't run by the state. It was run by a private individual that got told, you need to make this many.
Who was in the state.
Well,
so who was a representative in the state.
Exactly.
See, that's the thing. It's just, and with communism, it's the other way around. The state is in the company.
The state is the company. There is no difference in a communist country. It's just a matter of degree. The difference is a matter of degree.
Exactly. And it's more thorough it's more thorough in communism, but in National Socialism, it's still, there's a separation. But the members of those corporate entities, that what they would call the Junker class, like the Junkers or the Junkers, they are in the state.
Yep.
No, at least that's redact when it comes to communism. With communism, it's the party. There is no state. It's just the party. While in fascism, there is no party. It is just the state.
It's
wordplay from the extreme authoritarian left and the extreme authoritarian center.
I would not classify I would be interested to know more about this, and this might be something you need to research for, again, another podcast. Maybe you should start writing stuff down. But
I'm keeping stuff tallied in my head right now.
I would be interested to know how and why the Nazis got deemed to be a right-wing organization. What makes it right-wing?
So it's social conservatism.
That's pretty much it. What do they mean by social conservatism? The reason, like, they hated gays? Is that why they were considered right-wing?
That's one idea. That's one, but more of being very ultra-nationalistic.
Okay.
And ultra-nationalism is usually a right-wing political ideology.
It seems like, especially based on modern-day definitions, the Nazis would fall far closer to the democratic socialists. No, I'm saying that they fall closer to, like, radical left-wing today. They were for redistribution of wealth. They're for you know what I'm saying?
But see, this is the wordplay, right? And this is what's important about the wordplay, is the usage of words, right? So when you have your democratic socialists, yes, they are far radically left, and they have many of these same economic policies, similar to, let's say, what we've seen fascism and Nazism. But the difference is what is it under the guise of? And so with democratic socialism, it's just under left-wing socialism, stateless, or those center left or left policies. While under fascism, it's for the state and the nation.
Okay.
And the people of the nation. And so what it is with fascism, it is a unholy mixture of, let's say, center left and left economic policy,
extreme right wing,
very national view, and very extreme right wing social view. So you have those socialist policies, right? But at the same time, it's for the nation.
Yeah,
that's the thing. And so you can't really call the democratic socialists not, like, let's say, anywhere near fascists, because
because they
really
don't have
the
the love of the country. Is that essentially the difference? Okay.
exactly
But I mean, in all the
exactly
substantive policy decisions that they want to make, for the most part, it's the same.
similar, dissimilar, but yes. Um, so instead of so the similarity would be, yeah, let's say the redistribution of wealth, but the dissimilar aspect of it is that they heavily rely on state-sponsored corporations, like to the point where the corporations are in, at least to my knowledge, a at the same level as like in a nationalist
Huh.
capitalistic society, where let's say the state is subservient to the capitalistic machine and does everything to benefit and
Yeah.
support it, while simultaneously being subservient to the state. So it's weird in fascism because it's very vague. And that's the beautiful thing and the horrible thing about it, in a sense, is that it has all these amalgamations kind of all mixed up, and it depends on who's running the machine.
Not cool, but
And that's
sorry.
the and
We're I was thinking I was looking at the time. We're already up to an hour 55 on this live stream here.
I know, right?
I'm
Right?
getting a little
It's so
tired,
easy.
and I gotta go eat pretty soon.
You know what? Dinner's gonna be coming up for me soon, too soon. But we definitely have to do
Oh
these
yeah,
midweek
for sure.
kind of
I'm all about just
face-offs.
picking up whenever we have some time and doing a little stream once in a while. We'll come
That's
up with
fine with me. I
we'll come
mean,
up with a name for it, and I'll put that underneath the now granted. Just so we can kind of separate it out for people.
of course.
Um,
And I have to say though, thank you to that one
oh
special
yeah,
viewer.
and to that asshole who started
Um,
commenting on our.
yeah, that guy. Maybe he should hop on instead
Yeah.
of shopping.
Yeah,
Uh,
we didn't give him any heads up, so I don't blame him for
I,
doing
I
what
don't
he
blame
do.
him either, but it's all good. I mean, like I could find a lot of free time for this, so this is fun with me. This is great, and again, for the one viewer, must say you are very special
Oh
and
yeah,
dear.
thank you very much. You're gonna
To
have
the
a special place in my heart for being the first live stream viewer
you know,
I ever had.
of course, and I know who he is.
Oh, you do? He
I know who he
messaged you.
is.
Well, that's
Oh
good.
yes, I do. Oh, he messaged a group that we were
Oh,
all
did he?
entangled with.
I haven't been checking
yes.
that because I've been paying too much attention apparently.
Yeah, the thing is that he commented on you giving him the shout out, which kind of breaks my heart because I was the one who noticed him. I'm the one who noticed. I'm the one.
All right, so I think we're gonna wrap it up here.
But
so thanks for
I think so.
tuning in,
Just gonna.
and thanks to anybody else that decides to watch this in the future. I know we got a couple more views on our first podcast episode that's already up there for just the audio.
Yeah, and you know what I'm gonna say is that the podcast is going to look like this. It's going to be better than the first episode. I know
that first episode that was boy, but it got us going. It got us to here. I'd say here's pretty decent, and it's only going to get better.
That's usually what happens. It's only going to get better from here. So for a current and future listeners, going to sign out tonight. Hopefully to see you soon for the next episode. And please comment, share, and subscribe if you like it, if you hate it, if I sound funny, if I'm ugly, if I should go to Del Taco and not Taco Bell. Doesn't matter. Love you guys all, and see you all soon.
And I'm Ryan Hoskins. Thanks for listening to Now Granted.
And I'm Michael Imperin, but you can know me as Mikey. And I hope, again, thanks for listening.
All right, bye.